This is the country without machismo, without femicides, without gender-based violence, the most prosperous and safest country in the world for women. And no, they didn't achieve it by destroying things for more than 15 consecutive years. Iceland is the best country on the face of the earth to be a woman. Here, the feminists won. Here they are in charge. Women control the government. They are leaders in all the key industries. And before you get offended, right? The country's competitiveness hasn't gone down. In fact, it's one of the most prosperous that exist. And no, it doesn't mean they hate men, nor do they tell girls they can be boys or boys they can be girls. It just means that it's the country with the highest development, with gender equality that has ever existed in human civilization. The only country that has reached above 90 in the gender equality score. And no, it doesn't mean that men are oppressed. It just means that I want my daughter, my mother, my grandmother, and all the women I love to live in a place like this. And can we do the same? We in Latin America can say not only Icelandic women deserve safety, prosperity, and good pay for their work. It's the same all over Latin America, but let's focus on Mexico because it has very detailed statistics. Between 9 and 10 women lose their lives every day in Mexico. Just take in that number. 10. Girls, young ladies, teenagers, and women leave this world every day. What is called femini. Yes, that's right. Machismo means that the man is superior and the woman is inferior, and she has to serve the man and be submissive to the husband's orders. Feminism means the opposite, that it's the man who has to be submissive and inferior to the woman. Here there is neither machismo nor feminism, only equality, both are equal, the exact balance we should strive for. In fact, we're using the wrong word, the wrong terminology. We shouldn't have either machismo or feminism, just equal opportunities and safety for everyone. And what exactly did they do? Well, let's start with what they didn't do. They didn't destroy, they didn't hold destructive protests, they didn't demonstrate by destroying government buildings or painting public offices. And to the girls who have participated in these feminist protests, I have nothing against you, I'm not criticizing. This video is not to criticize the feminist movement in Latin America, it's to show you an example of a country that actually achieved what we all want. I also want all femicides to end, just like 99.9% of men do. We want an end to violence against women. We want the women we love to be safe on the streets. What we disagree on is the method that has been sought. Protesting in the main square and damaging government property won't help us. Let me show you an example. Again, I'm not criticizing, I'm just doing my part to help with this problem that's so big. Every year we see these destructive protests that don't get us anywhere. And yes, I agree with you when you say you'd rather see your mother, sister, and daughter alive than see the main square covered in graffiti. I agree, but it doesn't need to be either or. Here's an example. Let's look step by step at how Iceland eliminated machismo and everything that troubles us. Everything feminists are looking for here is there. Let's look at this graph that shows us the wage disparity between men and women for doing the same job. In 1975, look at Japan at 42%, the United States at 37%. Iceland was almost at 40%. Now let's look at it. In 2022, see, Iceland is at 9.7%, and of course it's not the perfect country. They still have work to do, but it is the country that comes closest to total gender equality, and we have a lot to learn. Just look at the government of Iceland, its president. A woman, of course, but all the key positions are held. Some governments put women in office, but they give them positions that aren't so crucial. For example, the Minister of Culture is a man, while the Ministers of Industry and Justice are women. And do you see a balance between men and women? But I guarantee you that the ministers who are here are not here because of their gender or who they know, but because they are qualified regardless of their gender. Being a woman in Iceland is considered one of the most empowering experiences in the world. And walking through the streets of this country and talking to the women here, I can see why. Especially compared to other countries, not just Latin America, but worldwide. And this is not a criticism of Latin America. I'm not pointing out these facts to put down my motherland or my homeland or my home in the world. This shows that if they can do it, so can we. If the women whom the Icelanders love deserve it, the women whom we love deserve it too. And now here's the fact that's going to offend a lot of people. A lot of you are really going to dislike me. Iceland is a country that has never recorded a destructive protest in its entire modern history. Let that fact sink in, especially when every year we have this debate and fight among the population, when there are feminist marches causing destruction, and every year we have YouTubers, Spanish-speaking content creators who grew up in Latin America and are aware of this problem who come to this country. Why had no one talked about this? Why didn't any of the many YouTubers who have come here say, hey, this country achieved gender equality without violence? I'm probably the first to stir up controversy on this tough topic. I don't mean to offend. It began with a group of activists. Women in Iceland, just like in Latin America, were tired. Even though it might not seem like it, just a few decades ago, Iceland, in terms of women's quality of life, wasn't so different from Latin America. So the women here, fed up and tired of not having job opportunities, of society forcing them to stay at home, when they enter the Latin American field, their options are very limited. A man thinks you're less intelligent because you're a woman and explains things slowly, like you're a 10-year-old. And once you learn to do it just like the men, they still pay you less. Girls, you already know the story. Well, that's exactly how the women of Iceland were here and determined. They decided to make a positive change for their whole country, but they didn't know what to do. So they came up with the only thing they could, a peaceful protest. This group of female activists was very diverse. There were liberals, conservatives, atheists, and religious women. Homemakers, teachers, women who never married, young women without children, ladies with 25 grandchildren. The whole population came together because it wasn't about an ideology or political party. It wasn't left versus right. It wasn't you against me, them against us. It was about the collective good, the well-being of everyone. The whole country, working for the well-being of the whole country. So they started organizing their protest. Hands to work, remember. The difference between a dream and a goal is a deadline. When something feels like a really big dream to you, break it into pieces, start with step 1, step 2, break it into sections. And that's what they did, and their first step is to organize our protest. We need a date for our march. And of course, at first this idea was very radical for the conservatives. It was very progressive, very crazy. It goes against what our religion tells us. It goes against the traditional values and customs that have been in my family for generations. But that's where you have to think beyond how you were raised. It's up to you to identify everything harmful to your society that has affected your children. And that you become the change, that you become the person who breaks this generational trauma, that you say, my parents and grandparents taught me this way, but I'm making this change right now. It's a country that's frozen most of the year, just like Canada, so it had to be in the summer. So once they talked to the government, some authorities finally had a date for their protest, just a few months away. So they had to act quickly, just a few months. To get ready to convince most of the women in the country not to work that day. Is there a national strike? They started taking numbers from the phone book and calling them. Go door to door seeking volunteers and spreading the word to friends, aunts, sisters, and grandmothers. Basically the equivalent of making a viral video today, but without social media. Just word of mouth from person to person. So the conservatives once again said, I don't like the word strike. No, we can't go on strike. The argument was, my husband doesn't like strikes, men aren't going to like strikes. The people who gave us permission for this event aren't going to like it if we say strike. So, to keep these adult babies from pouting, they decided not to call it a strike, but a day off. And so the women took the day off. And so, to everyone's surprise, the people involved, the organizers, and the spectators. Almost 90% of the women in the entire country participated in this strike. Well, a day off, the day they took their day off. The radio had to stop because there were no female telecom operators, there were no phone lines, because the girls who connect them weren't there. The airlines cancelled their flights because there were no stewardesses, the schools closed because there were no female teachers, the country came to a standstill, it simply stopped functioning. Not just women with domestic tasks, but also by refusing to care for the children. Today the man can't go to work, whether he stays at home or takes the children with him. And in this way they showed how invaluable they are to the economy. But the next day, the gender equality law is passed, which strictly prohibits paying a woman less for doing the same job, just because she is a woman. And here the key in this paragraph is that it is illegal to pay less for the same work. The key is in the same work, the same productivity, the same performance as a man, and being paid less just for being a woman. There they are. Look at the children, the new generation of Icelanders. They are being taught that men and women, boys and girls, are simply equal before the law. If this offends you, if you have a problem with this, go back to the 12th century. What it means is that you're not superior to anyone just because you're a man. What it means is that if someone tramples on your rights or tries to abuse you, they won't get away with it, just because you're a woman. If you see the difference again, here it goes. I can't repeat it enough times. Total gender equality doesn't mean hating men. And now, another thing where there's always confusion. They're teaching children that women weren't born to serve them, that they're not their servants, that they're not there to cook for them and wash their clothes. And they're teaching girls the same thing, that they weren't born to be servants, to be housewives, to serve their husbands, and that if you want to go out and work and join the workforce, you only have 2 or 3 options: being a cook, being a nanny, or doing laundry. That just because they're girls, they don't have to work in some women's industry, but they can do whatever they want, and they have a country with a system that supports them. For me, this is super clear. I don't know why there are people who get confused here now about men. This gender equality doesn't mean they're going to humiliate you, that they're going to put you down, that they won't show you affection, that they won't give you your place, that they won't appreciate you as a provider, in case you're the provider. Because there are also women in Iceland who stay at home to take care of the children. It doesn't mean they won't see your work as something worthy. It doesn't mean they won't love you or that they don't need you emotionally. And this is a natural and common thought when you hear the words empowered woman, independent woman, woman with opportunities. People think, she's a woman who is believed can't be my partner because she sees me as inferior. This is not the case, but many opponents of this law here in Iceland oppose this proposal and oppose this law. They already saw that all their fears were unfounded. Women's dignity was not lost. The traditional family was not lost. They didn't all become lesbians. They didn't start dressing like men. Icelandic women are some of the most elegant and feminine I've seen. They didn't cut their hair and tattoo their faces like some people think. Some girls prefer staying home to care for their husband, while others want to work and support their husband too. Teamwork, like girls who want to work, live independently, and don't want kids. Whichever they choose, it's fine. The choice is theirs, not yours. And this reform changes the legal system in several key ways. But let's look at just one, the most important one on the other side of the world, in the other countries of the world. When your boss doesn't pay you fairly, when you feel like the company you work for is taking advantage of you, you sue them. You take them to court, and you have to prove to the court that they are not paying you fairly. The same thing happens with women. You take your employer to court to tell them, are you paying me less just because I'm a woman? And you have to present the evidence and prove it, and spend money on lawyers, and go through that legal process. Not here. It's different. Everything is already prearranged. All companies have to prove to the government that they pay women the same for the same work even before she complains. And there are fines for those who don't do it. That way you avoid the whole big problem we already know about. And this piece of legislation is the key to why Iceland achieved gender equality in the workplace at the level they have. If I could sum up in one sentence how Iceland did it, if I could point to a single act they did to get to this point, it's that companies have to legally prove that they pay the same salary to all their workers, regardless of gender. Let's be very clear, we're adults now. There's the problem that some women want to be paid the same as a man when they don't produce the same. The most perfect example is sports. When the United States women's national team complained that they weren't paid the same as the men and sued the league, then it was proven in court that the players' salaries are based on ticket sales and that the women's national team sold fewer tickets. So, they were paid even more, and everyone mocked them on social media. The United States women's team became the internet's laughingstock. They sued for equal pay, and it turns out they were being paid more. If sports are a good example, men's sports sell more tickets, and I have no problem with women being paid. According to the number of tickets they sell, there's no problem. But here we're talking about companies, we're talking about doing the same job. If you're a receptionist next to a man and you serve the same number of guests at the same level, why should you earn less? Is this what you're referring to? To avoid that, Pais launched a program, a bonus system, performance bonuses, bonuses for achievement, because we have to accept it. There are lazy people, both men and women. People who don't want to work, who don't put effort into their work, who don't try to learn, who don't dedicate themselves. There will always be people who earn more than others because there are people who put in more effort. They learn faster and take better care of their money than others. And this is true, lazy men or women will always exist. That's not what we're discussing here. That's where this bonus system comes in. If your performance as a woman is better than a man's, you earn more. If it's the same, you earn the same, and if it's less, well, you'll earn less. But not because you're a woman, but because you're putting in less effort. Do you see the difference? That way, unfair payments are avoided. It's unfair to pay a woman more just because she's a woman if she doesn't produce the same as a man. This system gives everyone the opportunity to prove with actions how much they're worth. If you believe you're equal to a man, prove it. If you think you're better, outperform him. If you can't, you'll be valued and paid less. Alright? And that's what they did. They implemented this system and it worked. Icelandic women proved that they're worth the same as men in key industries, or at least they tried. And if they don't like it, they move to another industry. And they keep doing that until they find their place with the same opportunity as men. Now, is this because Icelandic women are very smart? Are Icelandic women smarter because they're tall, blonde, and really beautiful, right? Any woman, no matter where she was born, anywhere in the world, no matter what she looks like, is just as smart and her potential is just as invaluable as any Icelandic woman. And it also prohibits all discrimination, both inside and outside the workplace, all gender discrimination throughout the entire country. And they continued like this until 1980, when Iceland became the first country in the world to have a woman president. Now, if you're gonna make fun, if you're gonna make some little joke about how women run this country, you better hope you're lucky and not from a poor and violent country. In Latin America, honestly, with all due respect, with the intention of offending you. Every time they announce that any project is crewed by women, there's always that funny guy who makes a meme about an all-women space crew. And then they make a meme about a crash like the ship crashed when they announced the first airline where the staff were only women. There go the funny guys taking a video of a plane that flipped over in Toronto, and then they make it into a meme like the Three Doritos one. Then, look sir, if you're going to make fun of the fact that women are in charge in Iceland, prove it with facts. Before you open your mouth, show us that you're from a country without corruption, organized crime, poverty, insecurity, muggings, or armed robberies. Before you open your big mouth with some joke, think about it. Are my mother, my grandmother, my girlfriend, all the people in your life safe if someone comes and murders a woman in your family? There will be justice. There will be an investigation. The culprit will pay the consequences. A judge will sentence him to prison with no chance of getting out. That doesn't happen in your country. Your country offers competitive salaries with health insurance, excellent retirement, excellent education, excellent hospitals, one of the highest qualities of life in the world. Safe, clean streets. Does your country have that? Mock it all you want from your violent third world country. What this country offers with women in charge is something we could only dream of in Latin America. Still, do you want to joke about women leading in Iceland? Are you planning to make a meme? Losico, you seem less foolish when you're silent. Sorry, I meant you look better when you're quiet. And so, Iceland becomes the country with the most women in leadership positions across all the key industries of an economy, and its competitiveness hasn't gone down. Their production and working hours are the same. Compared to world powers like Germany and Japan, they produce the same. That is to say, putting women in key positions in an economy doesn't make a country rich and prosperous, but putting the most qualified person possible does, even if it's a woman. Yes, and I'm not telling you to go and fire your company's manager and put a woman in their place. I'm not telling you that if a qualified and experienced person comes to you and it happens to be a woman. Don't be afraid that your competitiveness will decrease. Iceland's economy is your evidence. And of course, there were men who disagreed, who felt threatened, who said they were being oppressed. There were even some who threatened their wives for attending the march. And there were companies that threatened their female employees for attending the march. But in the end, none of these threats were carried out. In fact, at the Icelandic National History Museum, you can see some of those threatening letters that men sent to the women in their lives. So, as you can see, for a movement of this magnitude that changes the history of a country to work, you need the unconditional support of every one of its citizens. And what if every year on the news we see images of how they destroyed the main square and spray painted the national monuments? Well, you're just taking support away from your community while achieving nothing. One of the keys for this system to work is the mindset of the general population, and they start teaching this in schools from an early age. Pay close attention, this point is often confusing and needs to be clear. They are not teaching boys to become girls, to change their gender, to be homosexual, nor are they teaching girls that they don't need a man, that having a father is bad, that having a masculine boyfriend is toxic. They are not teaching boys that there is absolutely nothing wrong with helping with household chores. They are teaching girls that there is nothing wrong with it, doing hard manual physical labor. And this indeed eliminated most of the pay disparity, but it still didn't eliminate gender-based violence. Sadly, this country is evidence that the pay gap between men and women is not linked to domestic violence. That is, even if you live in a country that gives you all the rights and protections, as a woman earning the same fair salary as men, are you still at risk with your household companion? It's very, very sad. And reading the statistics from the National Archive of Iceland, I realized this. Although femicides are not a problem, domestic violence against women still continues to be, and the government can't explain it. Why do they have behavioral psychologists working on this and they don't come up with a solution? They don't give us a reason why? This shows the belief that domestic violence was the man felt superior because he would say, I earn more than you, I support you, you don't work, that kind of thing. But we've seen that's not the case. Even in the country with the greatest equality in the world, this is still a problem. So what is it? Why is it that men hit or are violent with their partners? Well, we don't know, they're simply beasts. This is unjustifiable. If you're not happy with your partner, leave her. That's what I did. I got divorced. I wasn't happy in my relationship, so I got divorced, and that's it. But hitting your partner is indefensible. The reason psychologists here give us is that the country's climate is very cold, and that most of the time you're inside the house with your partner, and that they get tired of each other, but we have the same climate in Canada, it's no excuse. The women in Iceland are taking the day off as a commemorative protest, and there are events held every year that commemorate this event. And the last one happened in 2022. I think it was the one where almost all the women in the country participated. I saw a lot of far-right groups, those conservative ones, who said, "Look at the women." In Iceland, they protested and refused to do domestic work, and that day the economy grew. The country's gross domestic product increased. This isn't true. They're acting out of anger, out of spite, out of frustration. How much of a coward do you have to be afraid of gender equality? And you start making up fake news about a protest in a country that already achieved gender equality, and they're just commemorating the event. You just have to look at the evidence. The only ones who end up looking like idiots are them. And here is the country with the greatest gender equality in the world. It's not perfect, of course it's not perfect, and what worked here isn't going to work in the rest of the world. What they applied here can't necessarily be implemented in Latin America or in other countries, but it is evidence that it happens. When we all come together, we leave our political opinions behind, we forget about that left and right division, and we unite for a common cause. Here is the irrefutable evidence that the people united will never be defeated. Wishing you courage. See you next time.